Shane, we are live again. It is Wednesday, February 19th. These are truly the dog days of the NFL offseason, in between the Senior Bowl, end of the Super Bowl. We have not gotten to the Combine. It's fun, but everything is hypothetical. Happy Wednesday, my friend. Good to be back on the mic with you. How you doing?
Doing awesome. Happy Wednesday. Got my voice mostly back between the Super Bowl and the parade. So I should be able to speak. Well, I usually speak poorly, but it'll be less poorly than the last week and a half or so.
I was gonna say your voice will sound better, but it doesn't necessarily turn your speaking into anything different. But
good enough.
New touch on Shane Says. Anybody that hasn't watched Shane Says, we got the intro on Shane Says. So Shane's kind of updating his production skills, and then check out all the other creators on the channel. If you haven't already, like and subscribe to the channel here on DDFFB. Link in the description to join our community as well. Shane, tonight we're going to talk about players with new beginnings in 2025. We'll get to that here in a little bit. In the comments, any players, trades you want to talk about. This is going to be an episode where we really engage with the crowd. So put some stuff in the chat, ask your questions. We'll try to get to as many of them as we can tonight, since we didn't get to do much of that last week. And then next week will be a special episode, which I'll talk a little bit more about here later on in the show. But Shane, elephant in the room, we have to address it because we've already gotten questions about it. You know what it is. But people are going to ask, and, just brief comments on, we both announced that we're no longer part of Trades in 5, and moving forward, this is where you're going to find all of our content, both Shane and I exclusively on DD Fantasy. But just, we wish everything well with Trades in 5. I'll let you add any thoughts that you have, but it's really just one of those things where, we thought it was best to go in a different direction, and here we are. So I'll open the floor to you. But I'm sure we're going to get a lot of questions and comments of, what happened and all of that. We're not going to get into much more than what we said publicly. But anything to add, my friend?
No, yeah. I mean, look, like you said, you pretty much nailed it. Just moving in different directions. Us two going one way, Clay going another. Dynasty Trades in 5 is still going to be a thing. Clay's still going to keep that going. And I wish Clay and Dynasty Trades in 5, obviously nothing but the best. Clay's still a friend. Just time to move in a different direction. And, I'll say this, I took away a lot from Trades in 5. I think it helped me grow. I think it helped me change as a analyst, content creator, whichever terms we're using nowadays. Great 2.5 year, 3 year run. Things change in life, and you just got to keep moving with them, man. That's all.
Yep. And we're not going to address it anymore in the comments. I mean, we get a lot of questions, what happened? What can you share? Why did this happen? There's a lot of things we didn't want to go down the way that they did. But here we are. We didn't want to just not address it and go live on this show without saying something. So we wish Trades in 5 the best. We wish Clay the best, whatever he ends up doing, with the show. You're not going to hear a bad word from Shane and I about it. But that's it. Let's move on. New beginnings for 2025, an apt topic for the show. And, with that, where do you want to start? Because I asked you, who do you want to talk about first? And the names that we came up with initially were Trevor Lawrence. We also had Breece Hall. And then there's a multitude of receivers we could probably talk about. Every year there's receivers that we expect to have a boost in their situation, like Rome Odunze, or, potentially T. Higgins could be somebody that gets a new situation. It doesn't necessarily mean it's better or worse, but let's start. Let's go quarterbacks first. Is there any quarterbacks that come to mind besides Trevor Lawrence? I can obviously give the case for him, but just new beginnings. And before we get into, I guess, the quarterbacks, how do you approach a narrative that you expect to change with a player, or it has already changed with a new coach or something like that? Like, how do you kind of use that change to your advantage against your league mates? Kind of a broad form question before we get into specifics.
It's kind of like auctions, right? If I don't value a player as highly as everyone else, especially if there's new information that I don't think is actually that advantageous to their situation or their production. So let's just say T. Higgins, right? Because he's the easy one. T. Higgins moves on and goes to, we'll just say Jacksonville, right? is T. Higgins actually going to be in a better situation in Jacksonville than he would be in Cincinnati? I don't know that that's a clear, definitive yes. The quarterback's not as good, and you don't have Jamar Chase taking everything he can, taking away all the quarterback one's coverage. All the defenses are set up to get you. Now, there is a chance, yes, that T just stays in Cincy and nothing changes. It's just status quo. So I guess I'm just trying to get a feel on the players that I don't know that the situation is going, even if it changes, I don't know that it's going to change that much for that particular player, and try to, I don't want to say use against the league, but see if I can get a little bit more than I normally would, or that I could prior to that, if I'm trying to move them. Conversely, if there's players that people are worried about their situations because they don't like where they went, I might try to get that player. I might try to acquire that player if I believe in their talent and their production. I tend to follow that and believe in that over situation most times. Like that's my tiebreaker. So I might try to get players that other people think are now in a bad situation if I think the player can overcome them.
So in terms of using the change as a narrative, like how do you kind of sniff out, and I'll talk about my process on this, is really looking at a situation for what is the change? What is driving? And when I say new beginnings, I'm thinking of like a new narrative, right? It doesn't have to be that the player is just going to be way better or the situation is going to be way better. I'm almost looking at this, or what are the new stories that I can tell myself on some of the players going into the year? And some of those started as soon as a coach was hired, right? Like as soon as Liam Cohen was hired, you could probably argue that the Jacksonville running back situation was more intriguing now than it might end, or it was last year, right? Because of what Liam Cohen did for Tampa Bay's running backs. But that's also a situation that's completely unsettled. I mean, they have ETN, they have Tank Bigsby, but I also think they draft a running back. And if they draft a running back, Shane, let's say they draft a running back in the 3rd or 4th round. It's not an elite running back, but it's one of the top 10 running backs in the class. Let's say they draft Devin Neal, RB7. How are you going to parse through Devin Neal versus Tank Bigsby versus Travis Etienne? I mean, think about that. All 4 of them, or all 3 of them, are probably going to be top 40 running backs, top 45 running backs, but there's 3 of them, and none of them are way better than the others. So you have to kind of make your bed on which ones you want to bet on based on the price, right? So like thinking about that situation, how would you navigate a situation where they're probably going to add somebody, but you should also be excited about the 2 players that are there right now just because of what the same coach did with the backfield last year at cost. Both Jags running backs are outside of the top 30 right now. Now that could be the market is pricing in the fact that, okay, they're going to add a running back, and I should correct myself, outside of the top 20. But one of them, if they don't draft somebody, is probably a much better value than that number. So how would you play it? And maybe this is a more of a specific thing, but I think there's a lot of situations like this where the offseason narrative is positive, but the draft narrative could spin it the other way. So you really have to make your bets today. Like, what does that look like if you have Tank Bigsby right now? The best offer you're getting offered is a mid-3rd. Are you doing it?
Yeah, he's gone.
Interesting.
Tank Bigsby is not good.
Okay.
They literally tried to hand him the job last year, and he was like, nope, I'm not good enough for this. You just when Travis gets back, when Etienne gets back, when Etienne gets back, we're going to just let him do his middling stuff this year. Bigsby the targets weren't there for Bigsby. Now, obviously, there's a different head coach coming in, but if you're a tomato can, you're going to basically be a tomato can no matter what shelf you're on, right? You can move me from the top shelf to the bottom shelf. I'm still a tomato can. And that's kind of how I look on Tank. I like Tank as a player, but I just think he's limited. He's never going to be someone that's going to be able to get receptions. He's just not someone that's going to garner targets. So if they were to add, I don't know, who do we say, Dylan Sampson? I would absolutely be all over that with the expectation that would still be a backfield similar to the Bucks. It's just that Bigsby would be the Sean Tucker version there. Obviously, completely different play styles, but as far as touches and all that stuff and break. breakdown of usage.
So I would challenge you, because right now Tank Bigsby is RB 31, and basically what you're saying is you entirely disagree with the fact that he's RB 31, because he's next to Najee Harris. He's actually ahead of Najee Harris and Tony Pollard. Tony Pollard has a 3-year big contract and was good last year. Najee Harris is about to get a big contract in free agency. Tank Bigsby is just there, because there's nobody else? Basically.
Well, I think partly that, but partly I think people liked what he did last year, right? They saw him take work from ETN, because he did take work from ETN. He did eat into his workload, but he didn't take the work I needed from him.
He was awful.
The receiving work, yes, and he
wasn't
good.
He was very bad. He was worse than ETN. It's just ETN is the former first rounder that had expectations and didn't live up to them. So it's like the narrative becomes Tank Bigsby took the job, which he didn't. But that type of its analysis, I think, especially with this running back class, right? If you can nail situations like that and do it before it becomes obvious, not on the rookies, because I think everybody agrees if the Jags draft one of the top 8 to 10 running backs in this class, both of those incumbent guys are going to be threatened, right? Somebody is going to lose out, and it's probably not the guy they just drafted in round 3 or round 4. It's going to be one of the others, and you could argue it's ETN, because they've slowly pushed him away.
Someone
and
did.
It's a new regime, so they have no loyalty to him. He's a pending free agent. So
Douglas Peterson did. Yes, Douglas Peterson did do that. He did move away from the back that is better equipped to have a larger workload for the plotting non-receiving back, which is an interesting approach to an offense. But there's also a reason that Douglas is now unemployed, and probably will be for some time unless some high school or college comes knocking.
Yeah, and it's also tough because I'm looking at some of these others. The reason I brought up Jacksonville is because I think there's a narrative that you can also sell. Hey, you know what I want this year, Shane? A Buccaneers running or a Jaguars running back.
Yes.
Whoever it is, I don't know who it's necessarily going to be, but there's going to be one that you want. I can't say that about some of these other backfields, but I think looking at it through this lens, trying to see if there's any other team right now. I mean, Tony Pollard, RB 34, Tajay Spears, RB 37. Now that's just, I haven't seen them mocked as much to take a running back, but what if they draft your favorite round 4 or 5 running back, Shane? What if this is where RJ Harvey goes? How do you play the backfield? Because it just numbers wise, they're probably going to take somebody. You know what I mean? Like, how do you play backfield like that if the Titans that draft one?
Here's the problem with all these running backs coming into the league. We're going to have a lot of situations that happens in where there's going to be a bunch of guys drafted in the 4th or 5th round.
100%.
And we're going to go, wait a minute. I already liked Tony Pollard. I already liked Tajay Spears. So yeah, what am I doing with Rashard Smith there now? Now what do I do? Like, am I buying the new one because that's the new shiny toy? I'll say this. I'll try to delineate from teams that actually had changes either in the head coach or the OC or both. And they draft a running back in the 3rd through 5th round. I'll give more weight to those running back picks than ones where it's an existing OC and head coach, just because at least I have something to go on. Like, all right, well, this is the guy they just drafted. Now I'm screwed if it's like I said, I'm screwed if it's, let's say, the Eagles are a terrible example because of Saquon, but I don't know, some other team where there's not turnover at the OC or the head coach, and they just draft a running back in the 3rd round, and the existing running back's not that bad.
Well, okay, let me stop you there, though. How do you play these backfields? Tony Pollard and Tajay Spears right now, because that was actually a decent tandem last year. Both had multiple RB1 games. Now, Pollard had more, but Spears even came on at the end of the year and was good. That's a backfield that you don't want them to take one, but you have to you have to make some sort of bet today.
I'm betting on Pollard.
Okay. So what if you have Spears? What do you take for him? And what if you have Pollard? What do you sell him for? Because Keep Trade Cut says they're similar priced. Mm-hmm. The demand on both of them in your league is probably going to be more of the I'll give you, let's see what throw pick equivalents in here just to kind of see what the next pick is around him. So basically an early third rounder for both, each one.
This doesn't seem like enough, right?
But talk through that, because I think immediately people go, whether you like Pollard or like Spears, right? People are going to say they have their preference, and they're not going to accept the market price for either one. So they're immediately going to be saying, well, it's not that I don't see the risk in potentially selling them. It's what you're offering me. How do people normally look at it? Well, what running back can I get it at 303? And do I like that guy better than Tony Pollard? And the answer is probably you can't forecast that until it's too late.
Yeah, and that's a problem. So you're just taking a bet. So I'll say this, though. If you're going to take a bet on the unknown, you should probably use a player like Tajay Spears as the one that you're using as the capital, right? Like, I don't want to do that. I'd rather do it with Spears than Pollard. I'll say that. I've seen more from Pollard, and this is a player take, but it is. I've seen more from Pollard, and I think Pollard's a better back. I think Pollard is. I know Spears had a couple good games last year, but Pollard was still pretty good last year, even though he's injured most of the year. That's another concern, is the injuries. But I think you're going to have to look at the backfield. You're going to have to make bets. You're just going to have to. Or if you want, you make no bets, hold on to every backfield that you already have, and then watch a good bit of them get complicated by this draft, where there's 32 or 35 running backs with draft grades on them. Like, there's going to be running backs at it. In a perfect world, and it's not going to happen, in a perfect world, we'd have 5 running backs go in the first 2 rounds, right? And then every other running back go like the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th. So then we could just say, well, I just want the dudes in the first 2 rounds, and the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th. Those are just stabs, well, especially the 7th. But you're not going to get that. You're just not. And it's even going to be hard to look at draft capital as the determining factor when there are so many running backs with a good draft grade, because if I am a team that needs a running back, but I have bigger needs in the 3rd round, why am I going to draft a running back when I know that I could wait another round or 2 and get one of commensurate value, at least an approximate value of the dude I could get in the 3rd?
So let's go a little more expensive, because this is a guy who is another RB2 on his team, but he's one of the more expensive RB2s. Might be, I see maybe he's the 2nd most expensive RB2. Has a new offensive coordinator, Zach Charbonnet. So Zach Charbonnet right now, is that a guy you would just liquidate?
I'm getting a 2nd for him.
You're getting a 26 second.
He's gone.
Okay.
Yeah. Now,
not a 25. You're not getting a 204.
Right.
You're getting, you're just, the bet is it's a new offensive coordinator, and there's potential that there could be. I mean, I don't look at any team and say they're not going to take a running back right now. I don't want Seattle to take one, but they could easily take a guy in the 5th round, and you're going to probably want to buy into that guy in the 5th round if it's a guy you like. So at that point, it's not probably a bad idea to make the opposite bet on Charbonnet if you think that's possible.
And part of your equation is you have to see, is there a probable outcome where this player is going to be worth more than they are right now, right? Basically, is Charbonnet ever going to be worth a 1st? The likelihood of it is not great. Now, it could be, because if Ken Walker were to go down, we saw what Charbonnet can do, right? We've seen that he can smash, but he needed Ken Walker to go away for that. Now, again, it will be a new offensive coordinator, so there's also the other side of that, right? You could go, well, this new OC's coming in. He's not beholden to Ken Walker, and we saw what Charbs could do when Walker was out, and maybe they want to add a little bit more of that to the offense. But there's also the fact that Walker was smashing before he got injured last year. But all in all, I think it's a safe bet to assume that Charbonnet is not going to get up into the 1st range. Now, also, what you have to keep in mind is next year at this time, sometime during next season, I'm going to be looking to buy a running back, right? And I'm probably going to use a 2nd to buy a running back. And I'm probably going to buy a running back like Charbonnet. But at least then, I don't have any risk holding on to that player for the season, right? I have the pick, which is what I'm going to use to buy a player that is smashing then for next year's Chase Brown, for next year's Zach Charbonnet, because I don't know that last year's Zach Charbonnet is going to be this year's Zach Charbonnet, if that makes any sense.
I'm going to challenge your logic a little bit, though, because when I'm talking about a lot of these running backs, there's less than 8 running backs in the whole league that are worth a real first, not the 112, a first.
It's a real first.
So I don't even look at running backs of, are they ever going to be worth more? Because to me, I've just moved completely to a model where running backs are entirely valued to what they can do for my roster build. So like, I do want to have some Zach Charbonnets sitting over there on my teams, because that is a guy that if they don't take a running back, he's an injury away from like an RB1. And if I get that, I don't want to trade it, because let's say Ken Walker misses 6 weeks. He's going to be out 6 weeks, right? That's the reason I even had the Zach Charbonnet bet placed. It's not so that I can turn around and somebody goes, well, maybe I'll give you 2 seconds for him. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like if I hit on that bet, it's not a bet that I'm just immediately trying to turn a profit, because I just don't think there's profit at that range of running backs, given what they could give to your team. So it kind of feels like this is just me speaking. And I know I've led us down this rabbit hole of 20 plus minutes on running backs, but
whatever.
There's a lot of running backs that people just don't know what to do with, meaning I can go all the way down to, I mean, dude, we're down to like RB 53, Javonte Williams, RB 57, Jerome Ford. Like, those are guys I still want on my rosters. You know what I mean? Like, I don't honestly see a big difference between those guys. And then you look at Isaiah Pacheco, like RB 22. You know what I mean? Like, they're all the same in a way, in terms of looking at them right now compared to what could happen with the draft class. It's like, it's how I'm building out my running back rooms. And I think if you can nail these bets between now and even free agency, I think this is where there's some value. The problem is, a lot of leagues, it's like no one even wants any of these guys, right? You try to go trade Javonte Williams and Isaiah Pacheco, and it's like nobody wants either one, yet Keep Trade Cut says one is 3 times more valuable than the other. Well, but the reality is nobody wants to buy any of them.
A lot of these are going to be decisions you don't even have to make, as you pointed out. Like, I could put Javonte Williams on the block, and no one's going to even make a peep in my league. I could put Pacheco on the block in my league, and no one's going to make a peep. Like, you brought up the fact that there's like 8 running backs. I think there's probably a few more that if I actually put on the block, I'll get some bites, and I could probably make a deal. But you do get to that level of running back where everyone's like, well, no. Especially because there's going to be however many running backs that I can just get in this NFL draft. A lot of people might just think, and I think in a perfect world, if you can do it somehow, is you move Charbonnet for 2 seconds. Now, you'd have to add the Charbonnet, right? You might have to add 2/3, but can I get 2 seconds for him so that I have 2 shots in season to replace him when it's time to buy a running back or acquire a running back? I have multiple picks to do so. Yeah. But Pacheco got put up on the block in the league, laughed at the guy. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. We all see it, right? So we're sitting there minding our own business on the sofa, laying down, trying to watch some Doctor Who, which is not very good with Donna, but hopefully she leaves the show soon. And we see the sleeper alerts go off where someone's updating their trade bait. And we're like, no, dude, no, I don't want that dude. I don't want that dude. Absolutely not.
But Shane, the fact that, and I misspoke, Pacheco is now RB 30 because they added in the rookie players into the running back ranks, but like, he's still RB 30 and he gets laughed at when he gets put on the block. So either that highlights a complete inefficiency, or it just comes down to, I mean, I very much dislike Isaiah Pacheco. He was awful. He should have never come back from his injury, but you understand why he did, right? Because he's a 6th round pick fighting for his life in the NFL, and he probably couldn't afford to not come back at all, right? And then the Chiefs win potentially without him, and he's not fresh on the mind of like he came back from his you know what I mean? Like, you can see why he came back, but the fact that he's still a running back that could be a starter next year. He could have a role next year. And the fact that people are like laughing at him when he gets put on the block tells me there's just a huge inefficiency with running backs. I want to do a future show on this. That's why I did such a deep dive on the RB situations and the RB efficiency, just because like there's so much that's going to get thrown into these backfields that's going to completely change our assessment. It's something that I think if you nail and you build out, there's never been a better offseason to build a dynamic running back room with different levels of backups, platoon guys, draft picks. Any RBs on a 53 are dirt cheap. I mean, I didn't even go further down to where we're talking about the guys that are outside the top, I don't know, 60, 70. You know what I mean? Guys like Roschon Johnson, where people just assume are dead.
He's gone.
Guys like Isaiah Davis.
No.
You know, Jaleel McLaughlin and Roschon Johnson are two guys that last year was their time to be the committee producer, right? And they didn't do shit. So now people go, those guys are terrible. Yet we get to midseason and they're going to go, why is Roschon Johnson getting carries over the favorite Bear running back they drafted in the 4th?
But the problem is he's going to get 6 carries. They're going to be inefficient. He's going to get 1 target. I get what you're saying.
The point is there's a lot of RBs that are technically going to be on depth charts that people have just miscast as that guy's dead. And I'm not saying they're not going to draft competition, but there have not been points ever where you can get RBs on a 53 that are going to be actual roles cheaper because people have just, I mean, basically if you're outside the top.
But just real quick while you're thinking through that, at some point you can look at a player and go, this guy absolutely fucking sucks. There is absolutely no value in holding on to this dick bag because even when they put him in there and they give him 8 carries, it's going to be terrible. But he's going to run for 16 yards. And then next week, he's not going to see any touches.
Shane, we're talking about the last 5 guys on your team.
Yeah.
And the whole purpose is to hope there's that 1 week out of 17 where they get a fluke start. I mean, that's how low.
So wouldn't you rather have a 3rd or a 4th that you could try to buy one of those dudes in season when you don't have to figure out who it is?
I think with guys like Roschon Johnson, the value's even lower, meaning that the price that somebody would give you for him is below a 4th, right? To the point where immediately when you think you get laughed at when you put Pacheco on the block.
Oh, man.
Put Alexander Madison on the block, all right? He's not great, but he wasn't the worst running back in the league. He is what he is. But put him on the block, and it's almost like nobody's giving you a pick. Are you kidding me, Shane? A pick for that guy? He's worth a roster spot until you cut him. Yeah. And as soon as you cut him, I want him, but I would never give you even 5 fab for him. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. He's a dude. Yeah, literally $5 in fab. You won't even get that. So Madison did score fantasy points when he started last year. He kept getting injured, and they were some of the most inefficient fantasy points because I had Madison in a couple leagues, so I get it. He definitely did score, but it was, man, a lot of work to get there, and it was so much work that that he's going to get ethered as soon as there is a good running back in the backfield with him. I don't even know what his contract status is with the Raiders, to be honest.
Yeah, there's a lot of guys like him that you don't know. They're not guaranteed a team, a job, a role. They're not even guaranteed to be on the roster. But I think you can build a running back room with guys. I mean, the biggest barrier to getting a guy like Madison is you're trying to get him from like another Scott who has him as his last player on his team. And he goes, I have no motivation to give him to you unless you give me something, anything. 412
running backs like Madison that I've seen actually be able to start before. Those are the dudes I absolutely love on my back of my roster.
There's another one, Devin Singletary. Yeah. People know they're going to draft a running back. Yeah.
And I guarantee
he's just starts there, but I bet you he gets on the field at some point.
Mm-hmm. So I want him. I want Madison way over dudes like Roschon Johnson and probably even Tank Bigsby if we're being 100. But
okay. So last thing before we go to how do you get those guys, Shane?
Oh,
You have a team that could use some more running back bodies. How do you get Singletary and Madison right now? You want to add them for the lowest hanging fruit possible. What do? How do you get them?
They're literal. I don't want to say throw-ins. That's how they are. They're just part of another deal. You scan, and every time you make a trade, right? There's a couple things you should be doing, right? You should be scanning. What throw-in running back can I get added to this? Is there a throw-in quarterback I can get added to this? You know what I mean? Quarterback or running back. And if there is a Madison, you go, Madison's not enough to scuttle a deal. I bet you if I ask for Madison, they're not going to say no, right? I can't do that with Tony Pollard. Tony Pollard has more value than that. Right. I can't just be like, give me Tony Pollard. But if I say, give me Alexander Madison, someone mentioned Amir Abdullah earlier. I don't advocate moving for him because he's been on my rosters for like 5 years and he finally had some use. But you just have to ask. Yeah, they're sweeteners. They're literal. I know the person isn't going to scuttle the trade over this, you know, and it's usually a bigger deal where they don't even, you know what I mean? Like it's Nat on Godzilla's ass. You don't even notice it because of all the other players. You generally don't do it with little deals. You're not going to go, here's a 5th round pick for Alexander Madison, because the player with Alexander Madison is going to go, well, what am I going to do with a 5th round pick? And why do we even have a 5th round in a rookie draft? That's just stupid. So you just have to get them as literal throw-ins. Yes. Yeah.
You have to be creative with how you get them. Because as soon as I go to a manager and say, Shane, I'm interested in your Alexander Madison, you're going to drop everything you're doing and you're going, holy shit, someone's interested in Alexander Madison. I might be able to get a 4th out of him. Like you can't go directly for the player. You end up paying the price of, well, I got to charge you something. So what do you want to go? Receivers or quarterbacks next? We've spent half the time talking running backs.
Yeah. Someone's got Cooper Kupp in there.
Yeah, I saw. We have some questions, some comments. You want to go quarterback or running back, or quarterback or receiver? We can go either one.
Let's go receiver. Receivers are more fun.
All right. Yeah, Cooper Kupp. Thoughts? He's going to move situations. How do you play it right now? Because I think everybody that has Cooper Kupp knows he's leaving. They're either excited about it or trying to capitalize or wait for that moment to where it happens so that they can move him. But, like, is there a creative way to make a bet on Cooper Kupp right now, knowing that it isn't just skepticism that he's going somewhere? It is definite that he's going to be on another team. But how do you play that? Like, how do you bet knowing everybody else is already kind of sitting, waiting for the odds to be released?
You can't. Here's the thing, right? You're going to have to accept that if you're moving Cooper Kupp, you're not getting, if you get a second, you are lucky, right? If you get a second, you are lucky, and you need to accept that and go. You can say there's a reason around the age cliff. Here's the thing. So I haven't looked at age cliffs in a while. So I just typed it in, just wanted to see. And Dwayne McFarland, who's a certified genius, actually did something on this last year, 7 months ago. And at age 32, when do elite hits wide receivers? Elite wide receivers that were previously elite could still average somewhere in the neighborhood of like 13.6 fantasy points, which isn't bad, right? That's useful. It's useful. What did he score this year? I don't even know what he scored this year.
Down the stretch, he was awful.
Yeah, because he gave me a donut. He gave me a donut. I remember that.
Well, let's just talk about the narrative. Forget about the age cliff and the narrative right now. Everybody knows he's changing teams. Everybody knows he's going to be on another team. So everyone can already identify you're either betting that he's cooked or you're betting that he goes to a new team and the new team, could reinvigorate Cooper Kupp to where he gives you some more production. But it comes down to, what do you have to pay? Because I've seen people say he's a good buy. Like if he goes to the Chargers or the Texans or something where you could easily see where he could be productive, but they never talk about, okay, that production at what cost?
What did DeAndre Hopkins do this year?
I'd have to look.
Not good.
Yeah, it was not what you expected when he was essentially the Rashee Rice replacement. Not what you expected.
So the probability of an older,
but Adam Thielen also smashed. So
which was just an anomaly.
People hear Adam Thielen and they go, if he can do it, all of these old guys can have a resurgent season where they put up 15 points per game just because of the situation that they're in. So
That's the problem with outliers, right? Is everyone thinks that one outlier season makes it for everyone else. I'm not betting on Cup. I don't care where he goes. Now, just by the chat, I can see that people are still in on him, right? Because they're like, oh, put him in Washington.
Look at all these situations,
Denver,
man. Denver, Detroit,
situations.
Washington, Houston, the Chargers. Like every one of these are offenses people are like, they need another guy and they like the offense or they like the quarterback.
And Chasing Breakers has it in there perfectly. It could be another Amari or D-Hop. Buffalo, I don't know, my voice just cracked there. But Buffalo and Kansas City are really good situations for a wide receiver.
I disagree. I actually like Amari Cooper at
last
his price.
Year. I'm talking about what happened last year.
No, Buffalo's awful for receivers.
No,
one of the worst situations. We thought it would be good.
Allen. You have if you were any good, it would have been. He's fucking ass and washed. That's the problem.
Okay.
He's washed.
Okay.
Now, could he move to another situation and it be better? Sure, I guess. But my only point is we're betting on old wide receivers moving teams and everything being better. Like, not for nothing, the Rams situation was pretty good for him. Like, that was a concentrated target share.
Dude, the Rams are one of the best situations that if they drafted a receiver, like in the second, people would absolutely love that receiver.
Yes.
Like, the Rams are a place you love, and the Rams are basically without another receiver that's good on their team. Cooper Cup, you kind of have to go. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they're like, we'd rather have Jordan Whittington running routes out there. That DMark's we're fine. We don't need you. So I would just say, looking at all the variables, and of course I could be wrong, right? Coop goes out there, stays healthy all year. He's a slot monster. I don't know where he would go. I'm just trying to think. Washington, someone named Washington. I don't know. There's probably places that he could go. Well, the important thing is there are places where he will go that the narrative will definitely change, or at least solidify what some people think. Some people think that he is going to smash next year because he'll be in a new situation. I'm not one of those people. So if I have Cup on my roster, I'm holding on to him until that situation actually changes. We know he's leaving the Rams, right? Everybody knows that. We all know where he's going. But yes, let's say he ends up in Washington. Let's say he ends up in Detroit. Let's say he ends up with the Texans. I'll be looking to move him then. But again, you're going to have to be reasonable in what you think you're getting. You're not getting a first for this dude. Like, those days are long gone. You might be able to use him in a package or something like that.
I mean, what if he ends up with, let's just hypothetically say he ends up on Washington, right? What's the move? He ends up on Washington. Of course, that's going to come with them talking him up. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, they believe that he's got juice in the tank. And right then you get offered the 210 when he goes to Washington. Is he gone? Because here's the thing. We think you're just going to be able to turn a profit. But really what happens is the fact that he goes to Washington, that's what triggers anybody to even want to give you something. You know what I mean? Like, they're going, oh, okay, I wouldn't pay a second today, but as soon as he lands, I'll give the second. But it's not anything better, and I can't use him to up tier. I have to decide then, once the information has presented itself. That's probably what's much more realistic. What do you think?
Okay, I'll take the 210 for Cup. I'll take the 210 for Cup. Yeah, I'll take the 210 for Cup. Real quick, this was a good, while we're talking about this, is Adams a different tier, new team, but definitely had a better year than Cup? Yes, Diggs, Hopkins, etc., but not the elite season. And someone else noted Devontae Adams absolutely smashed down the stretch. Look, I'll buy. Can I trade Cup and a third for Devontae Adams? Because that's what I'd like to do.
Yeah, let's talk about that, because I think that's the kind of move that, if you made that, and you're right, Devontae Adams was a wide receiver 1 down the stretch. You know what I mean? Like, he was great. And so is the market pricing the gap between those two players as different as what your assessment might be? Like, basically, it's Cup is done. Adams still could be great.
I mean, Adams was based. Let me look at it. What was he? He was the wide receiver 9 last year. Yeah, Devontae Adams is still great. So if anyone is
that a range you'd add a second to Cooper Cup to get Devontae Adams?
Yes.
Okay.
It's not a first, so I'm still doing that because I basically would just trade Cooper Kupp for 210, right? So if I'm willing to give up the 210 in a second for Devonta Adams. And then someone else in here actually brought up, when are you willing to let a vet just die on your roster? Currently, he has Adams, Tyreek, and Kupp. If they're superpower, I'm fine with Adams. Always gets open. Tyreek with speed, Kupp, blah, blah, blah. Right? He's worried about injuries and no real life powers. No real powers. I don't know what that is. But when are you okay with letting a vet just die on your roster? Now, I'll say this: that is a taste that I do not like. I do not like people expiring on my roster. But there are players that I'll do it. Devontae Adams, I am willing to let him die on my roster. Absolutely.
This comment nailed it. That's how I play most of the vets on my teams, right? Like with Travis Kelce, he's probably going to retire, but he might not. But you have to slot him in with your roster construction and the expectation that if it doesn't work, you're not relying on it, right? I don't want a roster of 5 guys like that. But
yeah, right.
Somebody like Tyreek Hill, what I've been offered for Tyreek Hill, even I have a few others I want to ask you about, but like you have to just slot Tyreek Hill very intentionally on your roster, right? I don't want Devontae Adams and Keenan Allen and Tyreek Hill.
Well, and
all 3 of those guys were great last year. All 3 of them could be great again, but I would bet you at least one of those guys is dead after next year.
And Tony does have all 3. So it's like, all right, well, which one don't you want to move? Because that's the only one the market's going to want to buy. And that's probably Adams. So, I mean, Tyreek,
that's a great point. Which one do you want to move? Which one can you move? And is the price that you can get for them worth? Like, basically, you have to accept a deal on one of the 3. You know what I mean? Which one can you stomach, knowing that you're probably selling for less than what they could be on your team? But that's where you have to kind of invoke some sort of process and say, I cannot have 7 of these guys on my team, because that, like, Father Time's going to catch up with multiple of them every year. And then once you get to the point where, I think the lesson learned here is, once you get to the point when you are DeAndre Hopkins or Amari Cooper, there is nothing below where they're at today. You know what I mean? It is like, I'm either rostering them or I'm not. There's nothing that's actually there to substance for you to sell somebody else on for any pick, let alone anything of real value. So,
yeah, someone's just bringing up Kupp in the comments again. It's crazy. He had a 20-point game, then 0, then 5, then 3.9, and then in the playoffs, 3.9, and then Cooper DeJean. He got 11.1 against Cooper DeJean. So, for whatever that's worth. Yeah, he was the wide receiver 23 last year. Again, I'm fine if you want to hold on to Kupp, but you can't have a roster full of Kupps. You can't have a roster full of Mike Evans, Cooper Kupps, and whoever we said the other dude was, Tyreek Hill. And you're going to have to sell the one that you don't want, because that's the one the market's going to buy. It's just how it is.
So I have a few more I want to ask you about. These are guys that are valued below a second. So in theory, you should be able to send a third in this class and maybe get a few of these guys. Calvin Ridley. Would you pay a late second, early third for him? He's kind of in the mold of, Adams and Tyreek, not as high of a ceiling at his peak, but he's still produced. Like he still can play. You know what I mean?
So here's the thing. Yes, you should pay that for him. You should be willing to buy him for that.
Okay.
You absolutely should. Now, it's a lot easier for me to say that than actually do it, but that's something that I should do. Again, you take a look at your roster, and does it make sense for you to add a Calvin Ridley? And could you move Calvin Ridley for a second in season, even if you had to add a third, if things went right for him but not right for your team? You probably could, if he does hit that 15 point per game mark or something like that.
What about guys that are a little bit lower than that people kind of still want to roster, but they have almost 0 trade market? But I could easily see every one of these guys I'm about to name, if you told me they were a top 40 receiver, like they were your flex or one of your flexes, it wouldn't shock me. Hollywood Brown.
See ya.
I mean, for what?
I don't care. You're offering me a third, I thought.
Okay, so thirds you would take. Yeah, okay, we're going to play a game. Third or player, okay?
Yeah, third.
Random third.
Right, random third.
Hollywood Brown.
See ya, third.
Christian Kirk.
See a third.
Okay. Amari Cooper. We already covered that one.
Yeah.
Keenan Allen. He's actually below all of those guys on KTC because he's not guaranteed to come back to the Bears. That's the thing.
Yeah, man.
Like, what if he hits free agency and, he's one of those veterans that thinks he's worth $15 million a year and he's not. You know what I mean?
Yeah, is there a situation that's going to get gooder for him? Gooder? Is there a situation that's going to be better for him than what he was in last year? I don't think so. I think I'll take the third. I think.
Man.
Listen,
Okay.
Everyone needs to understand. You're throwing these at me quickly, right? And in a real trade, I'm not forced to accept it immediately.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean? Like you can think about this. Just because I'm saying yes, no, you know what I mean? When you actually get these offers, you can think about it. You can look up, all right, well, how did he actually score? What was his target share? You know what I mean? Things like that.
The chat makes some good points. Like there is going to be one of these guys that lands in a honeypot spot.
Yes.
That goes like Keenan Allen to the Patriots. You know what I mean? People are like, well, like one of those is going to that is why I think this is a fascinating conversation, because these prices are, I mean, they're dirt cheap for guys that have produced in the past, but yet there's so many of them that most of them are not going to work out. But like, you can probably get, how about Stephon Diggs, Shane?
Yes, I'll take Diggs.
You'll take Diggs coming on. So you'd rather have Diggs over the third, but Keenan Allen you'd get rid of.
Keenan, I'm looking at it, man. Dude,
that's an interesting one, right?
He was wide receiver 3 2 years ago. Now I know he's
a 31-year-old off an ACL tear, Shane.
He is. Wait, when did he tear his ACL?
No, Stephon Diggs. You said you'd take him over Keenan Allen.
Sorry. No, I said I'm talking about Stephon. I was talking about Keenan Allen, who was the wide receiver 3 2 years ago. Now that I'm thinking this through, I think Keenan Allen's probably a player I'd actually buy. Okay. Give me Keenan and Steph. I'll take them both.
You've completely flipped in the last 3 minutes.
Well, here's the thing. These players, what did I say? You don't have to make the trade right then and there. You can look at your roster and go, does this make sense for me to? Here's the good thing, right? Even if you wanted to buy all of these players for third round draft picks, which I don't recommend, what are you losing out on? The hit rate on third round picks is probably not very good, is what I'm going to say. I did a video on Shane Says looking at second round picks. The production rate was something like 26% of those hit a top 36 season at wide receiver, running back in their first year. And then 50% of them held their value through the next year. What do you think it is for third rounders? And I'm not doing a video on third rounders, so I'm just going to guess it's probably closer to the 10% mark. Like third rounders are literal dart throws for the most part.
Yeah.
Hey, we got a couple of super chats, man.
Yeah, well, we had a few in there. We have some questions we want to get to that we need to. We're working on our craft to host a better hour-long show, because it's literally just Shane and I talking back and forth of just.
That's what the show is.
Brain scrambling ideas. But yeah, I think to sum it up, there's a lot of these receivers that have a name. We mentioned a dozen of them on this show, that a couple of them are going to land in spots where people buy into, oh, that guy could be the next Adam Thielen. So that would be where, okay, if I can buy Keenan Allen for a third, it's the landing spot that people get excited for. He goes to Houston, or he goes to, this spot, and people go, okay, I can sell him now for a 27-second or something like that.
That's the thing. Maybe
feels like it's a profit.
Maybe you buy 5 of these wide receivers for thirds, and then combine a couple of them later when their spot or situation looks better. Be like, hey, I'll give you Keenan Allen and Steph Diggs for a 27-second. Boom. Yeah. You do that.
Let's hit to a couple questions. Hit the super chat. We actually had a super chat earlier, and I don't know if we still have it, but
yeah,
fired up.
Chris, we have Chris.
Oh yeah, Chris's. That's the one I thought we lost. So Chris says 10-team super or 12-team super flex, no tight end premium, only start 8. Daniels, Burrow, Connor, Najee, AJ Brown, Garrett Wilson, Ladd, Higgins, and Njoku. 101. Sell one of the receivers. Feel like wasted ADV, hanging one on the bench each weeks. What do you think here? I mean, it's a start 8. There's no tight end premium. I'm fine at tight end with Njoku. I can just start him. He's fine. Quarterbacks, I mean, I'm fine. I'm good at quarterback.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm just trying to see. Oh, so he's saying he has to sit Higgins or Ladd every week.
Yeah, because it's two quarterbacks, right?
Yeah.
It's a super flex and a QB. It's a tight end. It's 2 running backs, and you only have 2 receivers and a flex. So you can only start 3.
The math does check out. Yeah, I'd look to move Ladd because I've seen Ladd moved for as high as like 103 in leagues.
But let me ask you this, though. The key with a team like this is not wasting even more receivers on your team, right?
Right.
Like if you told me these were your 4 receivers, I could be good with that. Yes, I have to sit one, but I'm just betting on going slim at receiver, and that way I can allocate roster spots elsewhere with a bunch of other bodies at running back. I mean, look at my running back room, Shane. James Conner and Najee Harris are the top 2. So what am I probably going to need in this league to be up to snuff with the team that's starting Saquon Barkley and Devon Achane? I'm probably going to need more options, right? I'm going to need to allocate more spots. Yeah, I get it. He has Genty. But I look at this as is it wait? You know what's a waste is when you have 3 other receivers that he didn't list.
Yeah.
Versus, does this just allow me to go with 4 receivers on this roster, and then I just have every other roster spot with a running back? That way I don't have to go trade for a bet on a guy like Kenneth Walker. You know what I mean?
Right.
That's how I would play it. I'm not in a hurry to trade a receiver because I only have 4. Now, if I have 2 others that could potentially be my wide receiver 4 on my bench, that's a different story. That's when I can trade probably from one of the 4 listed and just get a better asset. So let's go to the other super chat. I know we had one more in there that was chilling.
Gary Schetzel. What's up, Gary? Are you guys trading McCarthy for firsts this year? I have Lamar and Stafford, but no picks, and the guy with Fields and Ayers has a lot of draft capital. He says firsts plural. He says it plural. There's a plurality, except that's not what that word means. But he has plural firsts, is the way this sounds, right? If I'm getting plural firsts for JJ McCarthy, yeah, he's gone. You?
I think it's a single first.
It's a single first.
That's how I interpreted it. I mean, multiple firsts for a lot of quarterbacks that are not elite, you would take a single first here. So you're basically, I think what he's trying to figure out is he has McCarthy, but can he get by with basically Lamar and just another QB2, right? And do I liquidate McCarthy for a first? Given that I think there's going to be an appetite, especially when they announce that Darnold's not coming back, there will be an appetite in this class of teams that do not want Shedeur Sanders or Jackson Dart. They want McCarthy because they like that offense. I actually have some data on the Vikings offense that make me a little skeptical on McCarthy personally, but what do you think? I think he'll be appealing in a couple months in this quarterback class relative to who's in this year's class.
I don't see a need to move McCarthy for a single first. No. Now, if it's 101, sure. 102, okay. 103. After that, I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. I do like flexibility, though. It's just if I trade and I'm looking at his quarterback room, my quarterback room is Lamar and Stafford. Can I get anything thrown in with that first quarterback wise? Derek Carr? Can I get Carr thrown in? Because then I'm more apt to do this deal. Because I
love that because that leads into the math says if you run the war on this type of league, if I have Lamar Jackson and he is the quote unquote like elite difference making quarterback, do you know what I need at QB2, Shane? Just somebody to give me QB 15 to 25 numbers. You know what I mean? I can win with that. So
now
that's a great deal. If you can get another guy like Stafford thrown in to play that QB2 rotation game a little more. I love that.
Now, I would like 2 Lamars. I think everybody would love 2 Lamars, but that would probably be cost prohibitive.
Yeah. Let's see. Well, we only have 5 minutes. Let's take a couple more questions. Maybe next week or the week after we can talk through some of the quarterbacks. Although, Shane, in 2 weeks, not next week, because next week's the 26th. Combine is next weekend. In 2 weeks, that will be our last show before free agency. I mean, that's coming up like super quick. So maybe on March 5th, we can talk through some of the different positions and we maybe have some more news since then. But
wait,
any more questions you want to throw up there before we make our final announcement for next week?
Yeah, you want to hit that up real quick. Geez, there's so many questions we did not get
Hit a
to.
couple of the trades in here.
Here,
Hit a few of the trades.
Kobe 84 114 says, I'll take the Najee floor. I agree, my friend. I will take Najee cheap. This one's too long.
No, hit the trades. Let's people want some trades.
You know what? Here, let's get this dude's first. This guy put his win in 11:22 a.m.
Okay.
Rebuild team. He's
early
got
bird.
12 by 10, Jay Nolan. 12 by 10 Superflex. PPR. Half point tight end premium. He's got the 1, 7, 8, 11, and 2, 11, 2, 12, 301, and 326 firsts. He plans to take Warren at 1.7, but he has an offer to get Hawkinson, the 2, 9, 3, 6 for the 111 and Pittman. So basically, are you giving up the 111 and Pittman to get Hawkinson and 2.9 and 3.6 in a half point tight end premium?
To start 10, we do have a nice run of picks there between 7, 8, and 11.
Mm-hmm. Here's the thing. So 1, 8, 1, 11, Colston Loveland, whoever the tight end 3 is going to be.
Would you trade Michael Pittman for the 209 and the 306? I probably would.
Yes.
So right there, it comes down to, here's why I might consider doing it. Because if you take Hawkinson for the 111, you now have more flexibility for that 107. What if the RB3 falls to the 107 and you'd rather take that? Even though it's a rebuild team, could it be a better pick at 107 before just penciling in Tyler Warren? Does getting Hawkinson allow you a little more flexibility with not having to be so stuck on Tyler Warren? You know what I mean? That's why I would do it.
Absolutely. And if you, like I said, if you still want to go tight end, you have 18 other picks, and there's going to be many tight ends in this draft that you could go ahead and take if you want to.
Yep.
All right, let's hide that. We've got 3 minutes before we have to get off. RIP Brain Rob. Yes, it's probably likely that Washington does get a running back, and Brain Rob will be RIP'd.
We're not going to relitigate that, but I think that's one of the ones that if he gets cheap enough, you just hedge your bet the other way.
If anyone gets cheap enough, you know what I mean?
Well, no, but the cheap enough is just what does it cost me to pry him off another roster? I think the way you were talking about getting them thrown into a deal where you move the 208 for Brian Robinson in the 211, you know what I mean? Like that type of deal where like it doesn't really cost you anything other than a preference.
Purdy.
No more QB. So we ever do a whole episode on QBs because we don't have time to go through it. Let's hit these 2 trades because people want trades. 12 by 10, Hurts, McCarthy, May, Darnold. We're definitely overweight at QB there. That's the team that should trade McCarthy for first, right there.
Yeah.
Gibbs, James Cook, Kyron Williams, Jefferson, Worthy, Higgins, Tyreek, Mike Evans. Have my own 26 first. Offer 103, 107, and early 26 first for Higgins, Kyron, and Darnold. I'm smashing that.
He is getting the 103 and 120 and 107 and a first. So
103 over Higgins, 107 over Darnold, and an early 26 for. I mean, you're getting the best piece in all 3. And you already have a roster that can sustain the loss of all of those guys. So that is just an absolute monster trade. Love it.
Yep. And the good part about picks is the fungibility of them, right? That I can use that 103 and a player and tier up, as opposed to it's a lot harder with a player and a player to do it.
Yep. Last one, G16, 12 by 11, Daniels, McCarthy, Addison, Evans, the 102 through the 105. So we're sitting on 4 picks, 102 through 105. And then also the 108. Should I be looking to break up Daniels into multiple pieces? Is that an easy no for you?
Yeah, I mean, unless there's multiple pieces, are literally 4 first-round draft picks. Now, I know it's start 11, and I know that's on a ridiculous price, but the point is I need that ridiculous payment to be able to move, to be willing to move him.
I'll give you Caleb Williams and Rashee Rice.
No, that's not ridiculous. I need ridiculous.
That would be a fair 2 for 1 that if you got that offer, you'd have to at least consider splitting it. But if you're not doing that deal, you're probably never getting a better offer. So
look, you want to move something, you want to split something, move to 102, 3, 4, or 5. We had one last super chat, and then we got to get out of here because we got another show that we're Scott's making me record. Hey guys, thoughts on Kittle's volume?
No value.
That's value, not volume. Definitely.
Volume, I mean.
I mean, look, if it's a tight end premium league, he's super valuable. In a regular tight end, non-tight end premium league, he's still super valuable to me because he still is a positional advantage. And now that he's had one season of being healthy, I just assume he's always going to be healthy. So, I mean, I don't know what's his value in
I
it's
think
so
here's
broad.
I don't even want to get into his value because it's very format dependent. It's very roster construction dependent. I think the key with somebody like Kittle is if you have him, you bet on him.
Yes.
So maneuver the other pieces on your roster to where you're as efficient as possible. With George Kittle, you're starting tight end. You're never sitting him, but you also don't need another tight end if it's not a worthy premium for you to flex. He's your tight end. So you know what you don't need, Shane? A tight end 3 or even a tight end 2. Like he's your tight end. And Ned is
not at all.
Ned is a great dude, part of our DD community. Thank you for the super chats, my friend.
Oh crap. You better make that announcement now.
No, that's it. I wasn't even planned, but it was perfect to have a Heisman DD member put that out there. Next week's show, Shane and I are going to be starting a new roster review format, and we are going to do one live next week. So if you didn't tune in last week, we had the show where we did the draft review, where we drafted for a Discord member and basically did like a mock draft for their draft. So if you didn't check that out, it's actually a good episode, still pretty evergreen because it's only a week ago. But we're going to do a roster review. We're going to do an hour-long roster review next week. We're going to start putting those out as something that we're going to do. So we're going to do one for a Discord member. So you have to be in the Discord, ddfantasyfootball.com. You can join. Look in the description. You get 50% off the first month. But send us a DM on Discord, either Shane or I. And if you're in the Discord, so low-hanging fruit, there's a lot of people I know that watch the show that are already in the Discord. If you want a roster reviewed, we'll go through the full gamut with screen share, going through the war, going through the roster construction, looking at all the teams, looking for trade partners, etc. So you'll get the full experience. We'll have you fill out the Google form and everything to get, basically everything we need to know about your team. So DM us when you want to put the deadline for that, change, just so we have ones to sort through. You want to do it by, say, Saturday?
Yeah. Give me Saturday, folks. Saturday. Yep. Today's Wednesday.
Message Shane all day Saturday with a bunch of DMs.
Yeah.
But get it to us by Saturday, and we'll pick somebody to do a roster review, and that'll be next week's episode. So you got to be in the Discord. Look in the description if you haven't already done it. That's all I got. Looking forward to it, Shane. It's going to be a new beginning for us, for Manic and Chill, and a lot still to come on DD Fantasy. So anything you want to say before we close it out?
Oh, we never do this. If you have not subscribed, please subscribe. If you haven't hit like, please hit like, because those things help us grow.
Yeah, I would never think that you can start a new YouTube channel like we did, and just watching it grow and seeing the engagement and stuff, like it's been cool. So if you haven't already hit the like button on the channel or the subscribe button, do it. Support the other content creators on here, and we will see you next Wednesday, same time. Thanks.
Appreciate y'all.